Isaac, how's it going? Thanks for doing that breakdown of the fog scene today. Super cool to see all the little tricks and tips and stuff like that. On the left bar, I'm not sure which left bar you were talking about, Corpse Maker. Earlier? These are my desktop icons. I don't really use the icons. I don't you look at my desktop or whatever, so I was just kind of trying to hide them. It's just a bit of a mess. But yeah, so we're gonna be doing basically. I'll do a quick example here. If we have a geometry, just gonna make a few different volumes. We go to polygon, and then we can set just the number of points or whatever. So maybe we'll do 5. Sasha, how's it going? You pronounce your name Sasha, or is it just Sasa? And then I'm gonna do for each point, I think. Umair, how's it going? I'm watching the old stream in the morning to the live stream afternoon. This is too much content. Could do with the VODs though. You might be able to blast through them on like 3x, like fast forward or whatever. So what I'm gonna do with this is turn Lokesh. How's it going? I'm gonna turn each point into an independent volume. So if I do this VDB from particles, right now, like the end result, you can see we're getting 5 different grids. And if I turn on wireframe mode, you can see usually with VDB, these are all flattened into one grid, but these are all different right now. And the reason I'm doing this is because my idea here is to do the colors and just apply them in the shader, like to have 5 different shaders or however many different shaders applied for these different volumes. So if we want them not like a surface, because this would be like if you're meshing flip fluid or something like that, or just doing metaballs density, and then this is like a different way to kind of mix these colors. Could do, I think this is we could do it real quick if you just do the primitive node and set under volumes, adjust the density here, and you can see different stuff. I might put in the redshift. These redshift lights, sometimes they don't turn out that well in the viewport. But this one looks okay. Sometimes the exposure and stuff doesn't match like the viewport as it does in the render. So I'm gonna try setting something up to mix colors with a simulation, basically just having more than one density field, and then you can apply different shaders and stuff to that. I'm doing all right. It's a little hot here. We had a heat wave. We're still in a little bit of it. They actually like turned off the power in my area last night because I think the transformers or something like overheated, or I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty rare, like 1 or 2 weeks a year it will get like into the high 80s or the 90s in this area. But most people don't have air conditioning, so you just kind of have to power through it. All the corner stores and stuff have like fans that they point at the candy section, because if they don't do it, their chocolate will all melt and their supply will get ruined. So if we want to, we could do different sizes and things to visualize this differently, and try that out. The other thing, one little tip is, I think I've gone over this before, but if you don't want these to be separate VDB volumes, sometimes you get into that situation. You can do VDB combine. And then if these are all fog, you might either want to do like maximum or add. Yeah, it should be a vector, right? No, yeah, it's not doing a vector volume. Basically, the viewport knows to use the CD attribute to draw the volume, whether it's a point attribute or a primitive attribute. It will use it to shade it that way. So my plan here is to never create the vector CD volume. I'm just going to create separate density fields or density grids, and using the shader, then the color mixing will kind of happen in the shader. Like as they overlap, it will be more of like an additive combination. See what happens. See how it works out. Straight 9 LED. How's it going? We'll see if it's a gem. I've tested some other stuff like this before, and it seems pretty promising. I haven't tried it in Redshift yet, but I have a feeling it could be nice. So yeah, if you ever do end up in a situation like this where you want your VDBs to all be in the same field, you can use this and just do add, and then if you do flatten all B into first A, and then you just do a split. So with the split, I just type in 0. So this is our A volume, and then in this B input, we'll have all the rest of them. So then when you do flatten all B into first A, now you just go into one final single volume. So I don't need to do this here, but just generally, sometimes I've seen people, this is like a bit of a hidden, I don't know, it's a weird thing to think of to set it up this way. But I've seen people set this same thing up in like a for loop to flatten your volumes, or combine them all into a single grid. So yeah, just doing it this way is a good way to do it. So we'll start going into Pyro, I think now. I'm just gonna make some paths in kind of a simple emitter, probably something like a helix type of shape. There's different ways to make a helix. I'm gonna do it the mathematical way. Vegan Nuts, good to see you again. You're hanging out in Isaac's chat earlier. I'll do at p.x equals sine. So right now this y, the line is pointed up in the y direction. So if we look at the spreadsheet, you can see the y coordinate is incrementing over the length of the line. So if I just use that to drive my sine function, we're getting something of a twist, kind of. So this is just one dimension. If you want to do the other dimension, you just want to do cosine, and then we want to do that with z. And then we're just getting a portion of a circle. So our line length is 1 right now, and this stuff here happens in radians. So we can multiply it by $pi, and apply that to both of them. Now we have a half circle. So you have your algebra books and stuff out. You probably need you have a 2 pi burned into your skull or your brain from. So this is why people do it, to do the full circle in radians. It's 2 pi is the circumference of a circle. Do you like the new Houdini 18 Pyro SOP mode approach or the normal Pyro in DOPS approach? I'm still using Pyro in DOPS pretty frequently. I think it's nice that they added it. Like one of the biggest reasons to have these in SOPs. I believe this is the one you're talking about. One of the biggest reasons to have these in SOPs is that you can use them without needing an effects license. Like if you're at a studio, sometimes they just buy the Houdini license that isn't an effects license for lighting, and you have access to every area of the software except DOPS. So if you do this as an OTL or Houdini digital asset, you can run simulations and edit stuff, but you don't need the effects license to run it. Shades of Orange, how's it going? So that's like the biggest advantage in terms of things like that. And then just being Skull Mountain, thank you for the Prime. Thank you for the Bezos bucks. The Prime, they've rebranded it to Prime Gaming. Daul, how's it going? So that's one of the big advantages, and then just being able to stay like in a single level is another advantage. I haven't really used this too much. I've been doing a lot more things using OpenCL. You typically work pretty low level with a Pyro solver, so I don't do it that much. The one that I will use quite often is the Vellum solver on the SOP level. Where did it go? I think this is nice generally, like with cloth sims and stuff like that. It's kind of set up where you can control a lot of things with attributes and building the constraints and everything like before the simulation. But with Pyro, I'm just using a lot more micro solvers and typically like getting a lot more deep into the mechanics of stuff like that. So you can do micro solvers in here, but I prefer to have like the full access of the order that these operations happen in and all that kind of stuff. So we have our single helix twist or whatever. If we want to build this out a little bit more, you could do like channel. This would just be sometimes people call this a frequency, just in standard like signal processing or whatever, or like waves, like waveforms. You have frequency. Higher frequency waveform is like more oscillations per second or over time or whatever. And then if we just add more points, have like a little slinky or something like that. And then if we wanted to, we could add the amplitude. That just gets multiplied after to the output of the sine wave or the cosine wave. This will just be amp. So we have a funny little wiggly guy. Curious to see a Vellum stream someday. Dear. Yeah, I've been slowly getting up to speed with Vellum. I still need to do some more research. But that was initially why I was like getting into Vellum for the grain tutorial and all that stuff. It's like one of the bigger projects on my website, not this section, but the Vex one. I'm still trying to go in and explain all the different Vellum constraints. Like some of this stuff isn't, I still need to test it more to make sure my descriptions are right. That's why I was doing like the stopped and pinned animation and attraction weight one. Starting to render out. Yeah, I'm trying to improve it to be a better resource. I started rendering out these tests. So this is modulating the attraction weight attribute across the grain particles. So just changing that attribute before on the source geometry. So I have a bunch of different wedges. I still need to render like these beauty versions of it. This is the same grain sand workflow as the two different tutorials. So I did that one, and then there's like the actual pattern. Messed up that path. The actual pattern visualization. So basically, the two of these combined, the results and every. Oh no, doing too many hotkeys. The results are the same. It's just a visualization of the attribute itself using like a color remapping or whatever, and then just the beauty or the end result without any visualization applied. So I have these wedged out for a bunch of different settings, and then the next revision of Sandman. Yeah, you could add it in. I didn't do it in the tutorial because I felt like it was going to be just covering too much and like getting too into the weeds for it. But yeah, you can use it to kind of change between like dry and wet sand or stuff like that. So I just set up a bunch of different patterns. Basically, the black area is a high attraction weight, so it will stick together. And the orange or bright areas are like dry sand, or they don't have a very high attraction weight. So they're able to like go together pretty easily. Like they should fall off and roll away or whatever a lot easier than the other ones. Tokyo Megaplex. He's in here sometimes. I don't know. It won't let me see his stuff. But yeah, he does some stuff for Cartoon Network, right? Very cool, Zonish. Yeah, he has another. He has a grain. It might not be grain. It might just be vellum tutorial. But he has one that's pretty useful. I think he uses the same character. I think he uses the same like motion capture biped type of thing, but he's doing like a pin to animation strength or something like that. Yeah, he has some really cool projects. It's got some funny, I don't know why this makes you log in or whatever. You did a heart project using this tutorial for adjusting the constraint, like softness or stiffness or whatever. All right, so we have our spiral tool. You could just name this Spiralize. You could use it to make macaroni noodles or something like that. Pasta maker. I'm just going to use it here with copy transform. So if you spin this around the Y axis, 180, you get DNA helix. Sometimes what I do, you copy this parameter, the total number, and then if you do 360 divided by the NCY, number of copies, then this will always adapt to complete the circle. So if you have 8, you do each rotation or each copy rotating 45 degrees to form the complete rotation. So then you don't have to keep like adjusting those or whatever. So I might start with three circles like that. And maybe my frequency here is just going to be this one, so we'll just do one complete rotation over the length of these lines. And these are going to be my emitters for the pyro, for the smoke. You see what's going to happen. You're looking ahead. Yeah, so these are going to be the emitters. Trying to think what the best way is to set it up. Let me see if we could do it with the carve. I think this should be fine. In the past, sometimes I've done the vex with prim UV to move points along the path. But I think for this, I'm just going to do it this way, just to try out a different method. So I'm just going to take this parameter and then paste the relative references, but add a small amount. So this will be the length or whatever. I think actually, let me forget this. I think that there's a better method. Maybe if you do extract. Yeah, I think if you do extract, it will just give you don't even need to do what I was doing. So this will just give you the actual position that will be a single point. So this method, you could fuse them together or do something like that, or like find the centroid of each line. But this is probably a little bit more efficient or proper way to work. So we could do keyframe animation. I'll just bring up my timeline, hold Alt to click, set a keyframe, and maybe we'll just work with like a 3-second window of time. Go into just click this stopwatch here to do the real-time playback. So that might even be too fast. You press, I think it's just Y, maybe it's Shift Y. You have to select them. Okay, let me try that again. So if you select your keyframes you want to scale, and then you press Y, then you get this box, and then you can transform everything like using this nice box. We'll go from 1 to 144. So I don't know if it's a gem, it's just a hidden. Do you ever use cops? Use Simon Holmedel to sculpt noise substance designer. Sometimes I'll use cops. They're a bit slow with what you're doing. Sometimes what I'll do instead of, it depends like what you're comfortable using and stuff like that. But sometimes instead of using cops, I'll just render like a grid using Mantra. Because I think that Mantra seems to be more memory efficient, especially if you're trying to like bake out 4K textures and stuff like that. You don't have as much flexibility with like a blur or some options like that cops has. But I will use cops as well sometimes. It's good. So these, we're going to use them for emitters. So I'm doing the gas particle to field emission. So I'll just make my p-scale attribute. Maybe just start at 0.05. And if we just press the D key and do disks, then we can visualize that. It might be a little bit too big. Maybe that's a little bit better. I wish that they just had a checkbox over here or something to switch. I just pop into that disks mode for a little bit sometimes. So I think we're good. I can put down my DOP network. We're going to use it to build the smoke. And then I'll do just a box for the domain. So I want to get all of the paths before we start extracting the points from it. So this is going to be my simulation domain size. And could do like peak afterwards. This is just a simple way if you want to add some margin or padding to everything. Just some extra space. So I think we're good so far. Let's just go ahead and set up our DOP network and get that part over with. It's a bit tedious now. So you do the smoke object, the smoke solver. So I'm always doing this smoke solver, so I'm doing OpenCL, so I find that that's a lot faster to run simulations using the GPU or OpenCL. So that's why I set things up this way. And if we want to get the Uskar, how's it going? Coming in here with the caps lock, firing it off. So we want to get the dimensions of this node I input. Right now you use these extra inputs and it's just like a placeholder, or it's just a reference, but it doesn't, nothing in here knows about it yet. So to tell the smoke object to use the dimensions there, you just have to link it up using these expressions. To do bbox, that gets the bounding box information, and then the node that I want to get that information from will be retrieved using the op input path expression. No, it's okay. I don't mind a classic caps lock. Op input path dot to get the parent node, or the node that this is inside of, and then 3 will be the last input. So they just go 0, 1, 2, 3 for the input indexes. And the bbox, you want to get the X size, and it looked like it worked. Sometimes my brain is off and it doesn't work. We get X, Y. I'm just doing tab, Control C and tab to go into the other fields. For center, you could start with the same expression, but just change from bbox to centroid. And then if you just get rid of the size, for X and Z, I don't think the centroid will be different, but for Y, it should be vertically like shifted up off of the origin. All right, that's the worst part of it, typing all those guys out. So I just move my frame back to the first frame. Now we can see we have our container. We Just gonna go over here and do solve on creation. It looks like it's not a terribly high resolution. Like you can actually see these measurement, the ruler marks, those are the amount of voxels. So if we just reduce this even more, then we'll start to have a better resolution. But we have our smoke simulation going. Nothing's happening. We don't have anything inside of the box, or we don't have any smoke. So I do this multiple solver. The reason I do this is so that my source happens before the rest of the simulation. Like before the pressure solve, before the advection, before all the other steps. I want the very first operation to be fetching and importing the new source. Kieran, how's it going? So do SOP solver. This is the easiest way to get particles into, or any geometry into a DOP network. And again, just do up input path of the node that contains this one, or the parent node. And this time we just do 0 for the first input, for the primary. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can see we have the particles now, but we just need to make them smoke, or to make them emit smoke. And that one is just particle to field. Destination, just density is usually a good one. We don't need any attribute. And usually I just turn off extrapolated and move the threshold down. And then right now it's copying. So it's overwriting the existing density every frame. So you do maximum, or I usually do add. And then it works. So up here, once I get that set up, I usually go and turn off my simulation cache. Whoa, amazing. The most impressive smoke simulation. So up here I do turn off my simulation cache and do convert VDB. So that just makes displaying the smoke a little bit quicker. The viewport can more quickly like update VDB volumes instead of displaying dense volumes. And then .NET object merge tab of it, you just tell it you want to pull in the density field. And then I'll usually pin the view up here, and then I can work inside of here, but I'm still seeing and visualizing the VDB volume in the viewport, so it should still be pretty quick. So if you want to middle mouse, you can see the actual like grid resolutions. So even with OpenCL, even with a higher resolution, you can still work pretty close to real time. So that's the main reason I do all this weird custom setup and stuff. So if we want to start adding some detail or interesting things to the simulation, might want to do the turbulence. Just make sure this one's also using OpenCL, and just plug it into velocity update. It's a bit too overpowered right now, but it's definitely working. So the scale we're working at, we want the swirls to be smaller, and then it's also just way too powerful. The Death Eaters from the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, that's a pretty standard setup for spells or magical effects is just smoke emitting along a curve or a path, or even just particles. But yeah, if you're doing spell effects, you're gonna get really good at animating splines and doing. It's like everything is based off of a spline for those kind of effects. So this stuff is getting a little bit more, I don't know, expected or interesting. Might want to reduce the scale even more. Sometimes bringing this turbulence up to 3, you'll get a little bit, it's like just one more octave of noise, or one more level of detail that it will add to things. Houdini for the magician. OP turbulence. Yeah, I think it still might be a little bit too strong, but I'm not sure, because my intention is to get these to mix, so I'm gonna leave it a little bit OP'd. Our man worked in the Ninja Turtles. I did. It was it might be the most recent one. It was the one with Krang, the revival of Krang. I forget the name of it. Like the byline of the Ninja Turtles movie or something. But yeah, all this stuff, a lot of the stuff I had worked on was on the older, my older website, or if you go to, what is it? Out of the Shadows. Or if you go to this website here, there's the socials at the bottom, that I have this stuff entered in IMDb. This stuff is a little bit more strict because I think that they actually check if your credit comes up like at the end of the movie or whatever. So some of these I was working on, they didn't have it was a smaller visual effects house that didn't get enough credits to put in at the end or something like that. I'm just doing freelance work right now, and not on any films or anything like that. But even for most of these, I was working as a freelance artist, but just under longer contracts. But yeah, so even these moved around. It was a bunch of different, like ILM. This is Oculus Story Studio for VR. And then some of the stuff isn't even, I never put it up. There's this one called Sun Ladies. This is pretty cool. It was like, I don't know if it's in this. They did the same illustrator from Dear Angelica. Did these really nice battle scenes, like little illustrations of, let me see. Big projects, Ghost in the Shell or Rogue One. Those ones weren't actually too big of projects for me. So like Rogue One, I was working at it at Atomic Fiction, so it was already a sub vendor of ILM. And I think I was just on it for 2 weeks. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. But yeah, this was the kind of, so I was animating some of the smoke and stuff for her rifle or bazooka or whatever. This is super cool to do this kind of stylized effects, and it was going into Unreal, or this stuff would get animated in the shaders and stuff like that, so the smoke would be waving around and everything. But yeah, with Rogue One, like it was just the one smoke that Darth Vader was walking through. It was just super quick. Very, I got very lucky getting assigned that shot, whereas it's like a fastball right down the middle or something. It's just something that's very easy to get it looking nice. There's some tricks I had to do because like they wanted the smoke to part before he actually moved through it, kind of like he was using the force or something. I was setting up the shaders as well. It's pretty simple. Like we were basically baking a lot of attributes into an Alembic file, and then in the Unreal shader, you just use them like to animate sine waves or different things like that over the time duration. Or there's other events you could do, like you could get the camera, like the player camera or the person's position in those drawings, and then like if they move closer to them, slow down the animation of the waving or do different stuff like that. This is like a simple template we had developed, but it was something that looks pretty good. This was actually the same guy. I think I linked some of his stuff up here before. It was Inigo Quiles that he was the one who set up a lot of the Unreal things for Oculus. He invented that Quill drawing tool for Oculus. This is why it's called Quill, because it was like based off of his name. So, oh, it makes more sense. So I think we just want this smoke to be a little bit more dense. I might just do this. Pre-molt the source, so it's just saying boost it before you add it to the existing simulation. And then it looks like we just need some more padding. So using this peak node, just expand things out. It will increase the voxel count a little bit more, but it's a little bit slower, but because it's OpenCL and everything like that, we're still working fairly quickly. So I think this is going to be pretty interesting. Now we just need to assign colors and stuff to get them to mix. Yeah, he's one of the main people behind Shader Toy, and a few other. There's like the Graph Toy project and a few other projects like that. I think he has a Patreon and stuff like that. So he's started to do more shader writing and very like. He knows a lot more math than I ever will. He knows all the Greek letters and what they mean and everything like that. He actually writes like using Windows like programs, kind of get like engines and how it draws the scene and everything like that, like real-time renders or real-time engines. So he just knows all that stuff super well. This is not the tire burnout. This is just a new idea, a new individual project or test setup. So I don't know. I need a break from that tire project for a little bit. It's turning into a big thing to work on and everything. So we have our 3 different spheres, but they're all the same color. If we try to get smart and do the same trick we were doing earlier, we don't get different colors because all of these are in the same density volume. So we need to make other volumes and stuff to store them in. If you look at the smoke object, you can see all the different fields that it's making. If you want to be lazy, you can just like use fuel or some of these other fields to store extra stuff. I'm gonna do this a bit more proper, just to show it will kind of make more sense, I think, if I'm actually doing it that way. So what I'm gonna do here, we have our 3 points. I'll just group each one of them. So group type will be points we could leave this as group 1 and the base group. CG Rockstar, how's it going? Did you figure out the caching file size? So we've just added 0.0, this one right here, to our group 1. No? Do you post the file? I was trying to look through the thread on, or the conversation on Discord, but I had trouble. The one thing I was thinking about is if under your, I'll try to look again for the scene file. But yeah, I was a bit busy yesterday afternoon, so I didn't really have a chance to take it out. But yeah, like on your pop network, one thing I would check is if you're bringing in your collision geometry or something like that. If you're saving that with your particles every frame, that could make the file size quite big. But I'll take a look at it either like later today or tomorrow. So this group, we're just storing this point right here, just 1. And then we'll group 1 more point, put it into group 2. And then we'll group 1 more point and put it into group 3. That's a little tedious. We just have 3 points. It's not too big of a deal. So we just have each point in its own group. So the reason I do that is because on this gas particle to field, you can source just from a single group. So now what I've done is just said only add the particle that's in group 1 to the density field. If you wanted to try out other ones, we can do that. So what I'm going to do with this is basically, we'll just do this gas particle to field group 1. I don't think Houdini takes advantage of NVLink. So the side effects is sticking everything with OpenCL and not CUDA or any of the, they're not doing any proprietary GPU development because they don't want to like favor, I don't know, they don't have a strategic partnership with any of the graphics cards brands, and they don't want to develop code that's proprietary to a specific company, I think. And then just the way that OpenCL works with Houdini, if you have multiple GPUs, it will never share the memory. Like it will just use, it can only use one GPU. So it's not like Redshift, where I think Redshift has some features that can combine or takes advantage of NVLink and stuff, but OpenCL for Houdini, you're just stuck with basically yeah, it is would be nice if it gets developed more. Yeah, the RTX 3080 Ti, those look pretty well spec'd out. They could be pretty nice. So we have a gas particle to field that is just the group 1. We can make a copy of it and do group 2. But we still have the same issue here, that they're all getting added to the same field. So to fix that, we can add gas match field. So what this does is just allows you to create or define a new field. So with this smoke object, you just have the ones built in, all these different ones or masks. But this one, I can name it whatever I want. So I could just call this density 1. And then reference field is which field to use just to get the properties from, like size, resolution, and all of that information. You can just plug it in up here. So before the particles get imported and before the particle to fields, we'll do our gas match field. And the reference field will just do density. And I think all the other settings are okay. And then with this one, instead of adding group 2 to density, I'm just going to rename these density 2. So it will be a little bit more clear maybe. So now we added it to density 2. So with our middle mouse button here, we can see density 2, velocity, and density and pressure as well. But up here, we're only bringing in the density. I think we can do the asterisks. No. That's a no. So we might have to do it with the object merge. You could keep adding these down if you want to, but I'm just gonna set it up with the object merge. I think we can just drag and drop the DOP network. A little slow with my OBS, but it does it eventually. Let's just do colon. This just means to get an object from the DOP network. The asterisk is saying to get any object, and then a slash saying from within any object. It worked. So this is just saying get any density with any extension or number after it from all of the objects inside of the DOP network. So now our color is working. It looks like we got the visualization by mistake. Like if I look at the spreadsheet here, object merge works with DOP nets. It's a secret. Yeah, it's nice to get constraint geometry or visualization geometry. Like right now, I've by mistake grabbed the visualization or the bounds. So it's nice for those reasons, but right now I'm just trying to get rid of the bounds. So I think like density is because of the star. I've gotten the visualization that has its own geometry and stuff like that from it. I'm trying to think, you might be able to do this with like more special letters and characters and stuff like that. I think what we can do is like maybe create the primitive groups. With object merge, you can isolate an attribute from DOP. Basically, with the object merge, you could just get any of the stuff you need with this spreadsheet. So it makes it easier to retrieve information. Like sometimes you have constraints that aren't in the geometry section. You're basically just able to retrieve not necessarily any data, but actual like geometry, whether it's visualization geometry, volumes, or points, or polygons, like RBD, any geometry like that. If you want to get other information, you just use this DOP import records, and then the import records would let you actually get like these kind of values if you need. Sometimes you don't really need them, but if you really want to get them, with import records, you can get access to these. I don't know if you're referring to these as attributes or this information, essentially. So what I did here is just to create primitive groups. I'm trying to see how I can indicate which one is the visualization. I might just abandon this for right now. I'll just do density and keep going to get both of them. So you can see there's a bit of a problem. The density 2 field isn't moving and it's not getting the turbulence applied to it. So there's a few things that's wrong with it. This gas turbulence, we'll look here for just the density. So it doesn't try to move the other density volume around. It basically only adds turbulence in areas that this density field exists, but it doesn't check the density 2 fields. And then another kind of hidden or secret thing that is happening is that the smoke solver doesn't move other fields by the velocity automatically. If you go inside of it under the advection, right here you can see it's only explicitly advecting density, temperature, and heat. I think, I don't know what the best way is to do this. You could like copy and paste those nodes from outside of the DOP network and maybe just delete these channels. If you hold down Control and click, that will just eliminate the keyframe or the expression. So we definitely want OpenCL, and then this one, we just want it to be density 2. And over here, if you want to, you could link up these advection types if you want to. I'm going to do it here just to do things, keep doing things somewhat properly. Just the advection type method and CFL are the only ones that really matter too much. So we have them linked up now. And then we just want to do this with the advection step. And we'll just call this like advect extra densities. So if we play this, this still isn't moving, we're still not applying the turbulence to it. So I can just grab this turbulence node, right click on it, and do reference copy. So this will link up all of the parameters. And then under bindings, if I just delete this channel, I can say use density 2 as the mask or the region to apply or insert turbulence into. So then I can merge these two together. So basically I'm just saying to do both of these operations. And now we've done it, finally. We're back to something that's working. So this shouldn't really affect the visual differences of what we had originally gotten set up. The only thing that would be different is now we have these as separate grids, so we could assign different shaders or different colors to them, which is pretty cool. So we can go ahead and just do that for we had one more group happening. We'll just do another particle to field. Amazing. We'll see. It's still a bit of a test. We'll see how promising it is. So this is group 3. Field will do density 3. And we just need to actually create that density 3 field as well. Let's go back up here. It's a little tedious. We need to get our density 3. It exists. We play it, it doesn't move. So we need to do the other steps again. You can just keep adding these. Every single spaced field here, it will advect or it will move it with the velocity. And we just need one more turbulence for density 3. would be a lot cluttered if we have 10 plus particles. They're hard to keep track. Yes, I think generally doing these kind of colored smokes, if you're going to be doing a ton of different colors, I would do it with the CD vector volume. The mixing with that doesn't look as nice, I don't think, just because the blurring is like not additive. It's not, it doesn't mix it properly like things would happen in the real world. The other reason to not do 10 plus is that each of these you're actually making an additional field, and then they're overlapping in areas. So eventually you would fill up your memory, or you would run out of RAM. So this is the kind of like caveat, or the limitation of this approach would be to not do too many fields. So that is one kind of limitation, or it's just one thing that you would maybe need to work around, or you would make a tool or something maybe for doing a bunch of this stuff. But yeah, it would be a bit of a pain to set up with a bunch of different fields. So yeah, I'll just do the D key over the viewport and just turn off my resolution limit. So just make sure that we're visualizing the full resolution of these volumes. If that limit resolution is on, it can clamp the resolution of your volumes and limit them. So just turn that off if you want to be sure you're seeing the full resolution. Would turbulence density field bindings work with density asterisks instead of copying ref a few times? It might. I'm not 100% sure. There's one, we could try it right now and see what happens. It looks like it doesn't get any of them. So I think this is happening with a different process. Okay, thank you for tagging me on the Discord. I'll take a look at them, Mr. Rockstar. And so basically this stuff is like being bound to OpenCL to do the turbulence bindings or whatever. So I think it's just not smart enough to adapt to that asterisk, because it's just OpenCL and stuff like that is too kind of third party or out of the box for Houdini. The other reason that I was setting things up this way is that if you want to, you can go to the seed and unlink these parameters, and that will let you run different noise offsets or different forces individually for each region, to have its own kind of internal swirling areas. So that would kind of increase mixing and could be a little bit more interesting as well. So each of these fields or regions now are getting their unique noise pattern or forces, which can be a pretty cool effect. It's like just makes it look less like a world space noise that they're getting blown around by, and that it's more like a flare or something like that that would each have its own unique forces to it, moving it around or pushing it or stuff like that. Eats Pyro Sims for breakfast. He's just been doing them too many times. But yeah, that's how we can get, so we just offset the seed for each grid, and we could get a little bit more interesting mixing. So the pressure solve or the non-divergence stuff will still sort it out, so that the noise will still flow together eventually when they like collide with each other. But we'll just get more overlaps in mixing and stuff like that. I'm still figuring out the flip. I feel like it's not going to be as fun just because it's a lot less interactive to work with flip. Like Pyro stuff is super nice for the streams because you just instantly see the results with OpenCL and the viewport and everything being so fast. But flip, the solve itself is a little bit slower, and then the meshing of the particles is like can take twice as long as your simulation, and the rendering, because it's like a reflective surface, is again many times longer. So like the viewport visualization of things isn't that indicative of what you'll actually get. So that's one of my hesitations with the flip stuff. I do have some plans to get into some of that eventually. So I'm just trying to find a better color palette. We could always just assign them by hand or grab like a color or something like this. These like somewhat primary colors could be nice. And maybe I'll give the container a little bit more padding. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. Just save it. This is gonna be the 15th. Color palette wrangle. You get that back out. I was doing the bounding box trick yesterday as well. That's a pretty cool one. This one we'll do scenes. We'll just call this like color mix multiple fields. Yeah, and then we'll just do a flip book from this view, see what happens. Finally saved. I think I would be saved. I have some autosave stuff running like under the hood or behind the scenes. That's why I'm not super concerned about it. And then we just turn off this resolution. I don't know why they set it by default. Pull those palettes out. I've been improving those palettes. There's a bit more now. So one last thing I'm going to do is switch the advection to the Rungkutta 3 and BFECC for the advection types. Those are a little bit more precise or better results, but they're just more expensive to calculate. If you're doing OpenCL, everything happens so quickly that it doesn't really matter that you change to those. If you're doing an open CPU simulation, making those changes might make your simulation take like twice as long. But doing things with OpenCL, it doesn't really have too big of a difference on the performance of things. So we're a little bit slower now because I did pad out the container or expand it. Better calcs. I thought they were OpenCL specific. The Rungkutta 3 is just like a higher order equation kind of. The easiest way to kind of like conceptually think about it is like with the spline interpolation, you have like linear, cubic, bicubic, or like subdivision or all that stuff. So Rungkutta 3 is a similar idea of it's just like a higher order advection. And BFECC is a little bit more intense to explain. I'm not going to do a good job at it, so I'm not going to try to do it right now. You studied the equation a few months ago in maths. I've looked at the equation. The only way I've really been able to understand it is like I've like repurposed or set it up another time using Vex. So, and then I could understand it, but always looking at the Greek display of the Rasta smoke is we did get into a Jamaican. We could switch one to white and then we would have Italian. So we'll take a look and see how these, I want to see them overlap a bit more. I look like bell peppers. Do this as an advertisement for the pepper. You think that there's a pepper conglomerate? You guys ever look at that stuff? There's different, so there's a mango board. There's like a lobbying group for mangoes explicitly. They'll offer you recipes and stuff like that. Even instructions. There's another, like avocado is a pretty big one as well. What would it be? The avocado board? This one might be explicit to Haas. There's like different, it's amazing. They like have too much internet. But yeah, there might be one. Let's see if there's the bell pepper. I was like looking up recipes one time and then I realized I was on the Mango Board website. I was the big mango is making my recipes for me today. I don't know if, because we're into the charcuterie territory now. Maybe if, I don't know if like org. Eat Fresh. It's under the Eat Fresh umbrella. I don't know. You guys ever see the one photographer that was, he photographed a pepper that looked like a sculpture, like a human. It was pretty cool. Probably if you just do photograph. Yeah, there it is. Even with the misspelling. Cheers from V. But yeah, this pepper photography stuff is pretty cool. It's kind of like the abstract noise form I was messing around with yesterday. It's these weird blobby structures. I think the YouTube algorithm took my thumbnail and it identified it as breaking their terms. Like their algorithm thought it was skin or something like that. Yeah, so this is kind of seeing this stuff mix around a little bit in the viewport. One thing we might want to do, some thick skin. Yeah, it's like very interesting with the black and white and the lighting. It's hard to tell if it's like the glossiness of it looks a lot like skin, but then the subsurface like doesn't line up. So it looks like a skin made out of marble or so. I don't know. It's like really interesting. So one thing I'm seeing here is just the density, the turbulence just keeps going on forever. So I'll just press escape. And I'm gonna go up to a higher resolution or a higher division size. So we're working at a lower resolution just to be back in real-time speed. And what I'm gonna do, one more gas particle to field. This one I'm just gonna do temperature. So we haven't been using the temperature field yet. If I get rid of this group we'll add all of the particles to temperature. So we go back here, now we have the temperature field that will be moving the forces, like it will be adding forces to our smoke. So by default, we get buoyancy, we get the diffusion or the blurring of the temperature field. We just get a big blobby shape. Buoyancy, I'm just going to turn that off. Temperature diffusion, turn that off as well. But the reason to have this temperature field now is that we can use it as a control setting. So now this, spell this, I just butchered it. All right, I think that's it. So now, I think because all of these are linked, yeah. So now anywhere that the temperature field exists, the turbulence will get added. But then you could see, because I still left the cooling rate, the temperature decreases. So we're just injecting turbulence at the start of the emission and not at the end. This just makes things a little bit more realistic. Whether it's like a chemical reaction or because there's some internal forces as these get pushed into the simulation, it just doesn't look realistic to have this stuff roiling around continuously. So that's the idea of changing that. I might make my swirl size a little bit bigger. We could do maybe more scale if we're going to be dampening it or decreasing it over time. And then I might just set these colors manually for right now. It's temperature, mass, turbulence. It's a good trick. You could do a lot of things with temperature. So setting it up like that is kind of like if you're used to using particles, you have the age attribute or n age. That's why I use the temperature field like that, is it's kind of like an age field. It just starts super hot and then decreases over time. So I'm going to use these to set all the colors. You can do it explicitly here just by setting the group by the grid or the field name. So this way, if I want to, I can just hand select. Maybe we'll do one that's blue. I don't know. I'll do yellow, white, and red, I think. The cheat zone. So what did I have? This, 2, 1. Just make this red. Did it work? I think maybe... Oh, I was going up to 3. Tricked myself. So we'll try this. I don't know, it kind of depends. Like, so sometimes you just see smokes in specific colors. I don't know, because it's of like chemicals or something, but go back to our higher resolution. But yeah, it's kind of like with fireworks, like you only see fireworks in specific colors because of they need to be made from like specific chemicals. So in real life, there's just a specific color palette for like glowing fireworks. Maybe there's a similar idea with the smoke stuff, is it? You asked for more magical effect. I'm still figuring out the plan, but possibly. This is an Intel processor that I'm using. It's, if you go to maybe here, specs. My bot will print it out. I did more work on them. You can also look in the about page, but I think the processor isn't that good. It's somewhat fast for running simulations because it's like a low core count but a high clock speed. But for rendering or other things like that, I think the Threadripper might be better. Even for like Vex and Vops, a Threadripper is probably much better because it has so many threads. So it's possible I wanted to go the other way here with my swirl size and just make it smaller, or I'm sorry, yeah, smaller. And then I'm gonna go to a higher division size, just so that we don't waste as much time with the flipbook. So I just think that these shapes before were looking a little too unrealistic for smoke. This is more like an ink or something like that. I just wanted a lot smaller swirls, like billowy, kind of get closer to like billowy smoke or something that way. If we're really going for realism, we would want to start doing disturbance or something like that. But for just testing and setting this up, I think this should be okay for now. For what do I prefer, more cores or more clock speed, given a constant set of RAM for simulation? It depends a lot on what simulations you're planning on running, like what different solvers. The grain or the vellum solver or the flip solver or smoke solver, all of those have different advantages and disadvantages for like the way that they optimize or take advantage of processors differently. Just as a general rule, I would think that the Threadripper right now, the way things have ended up, the Threadripper is a lot better than an Intel one you can buy. Just because of other operations you're going to have to do in Houdini, all that other stuff using the VDB operations or Vex and Vops, all multi-threads really well. So I think the Threadripper would be the best. So we're getting a good amount of mixing or overlapping of the areas. This is what I'm calling mixing or whatever. Basically, we're kind of doing a more proper additive mixing. Just because the two colors overlap or kind of accumulate to mix in that fashion. So the only other thing I might do is just increase the temperature cooling. So we're just visualizing the cooling of the temperature by how quickly the turbulence slows down. But like this stuff at the bottom, it still seems like it's getting hit with the turbulence a little bit too much. So we just increase the cooling rate. That will basically make the turbulence stop more quickly. I'm always still learning Houdini. I haven't been doing too much Houdini training recently. There's some, like the Toronto Houdini user group meetup. The one that I don't know how to say his name, is all the Cyrillic characters. That one I've still been going through a little bit. I've been just researching more like graphic design, composition. Yeah, that's his name. I don't know. I forget how to pronounce it. Or I think he offered an alternative, like an English way to say it, but I don't remember it. But yeah, he had a big spreadsheet or slide deck explaining like a bunch of low-level DOP stuff. But all this knowledge is just over time accumulated and working at different places. Even some of it was like the way people were using other smoke solvers like Fume Effects, or ILM had their own smoke solver that was proprietary, and kind of porting over those techniques to set them up in Houdini. But yeah, it's just from spending a lot of time using Houdini to figure all this stuff out. Yeah, the balloon stuff is super cool. He does a really good job of integrating all the data, so it's like interacting together. But yeah, I think the one change I need to make here is just increasing the cooling rate. We're just, the turbulence is feeling pretty good, but it's just lasting or happening too long. I think if you just go to the Side Effects YouTube page, they might have a playlist. I think they have a playlist that's just for their user groups. And you should find it. I think that they have his name in the title, but it was just the Toronto Thug, the Toronto Houdini user group. I don't know, it was like June or July. It was somewhat recently. Yeah, I worked with Steven on a few shots. He was in a slightly different department than I was, but we were both doing different effects stuff. He was doing more rigid body RBD effects. I was doing more smoke, a good amount of magic effects there as well. Yeah, the coffee time. I would think so. What other software will you recommend to learn along with Houdini? I don't know, it depends a lot on where you are in your journey, but I would just focus mainly on Houdini in terms of technical stuff until you really know like all the different areas. Like first just focus on SOPs. I'm just gonna change the cooling rate here. Just do like 85%. So if you just focus on SOPs and get a good knowledge of how attributes work, the workflow and all that stuff, and then once, like Houdini, you kind of have to think of it like many different software packages in one. Like the compositing cops and all that different stuff is like learning compositing and learning modeling and procedural animation and simulations, like all at once. So I would just even split Houdini up and just look at a specific area of it if you're learning it, like if you're just getting into it, and then it just depends on like what your interests are and stuff. Just learning like composition and design and that kind of stuff is always going to be helpful. But it depends. If you're just more interested in like being a developer or tool building and doing that kind of stuff, then you'd be looking at a lot more like math and programming. Yeah, so if you're doing more of a generalist route or something like that, then really training up on like design and composition and all that stuff is super useful. So this is feeling a bit better. We could see when we play the two of them with that higher cooling rate. Things feel a little bit more natural. The shape is a little bit better as well. We have more of like a pyramid. Less, when you like roil things up too long, it just gets a bit blurry or messy. So we have something that's pretty good. We're fetching all of the different grids right here, the 3 different densities. I'm just gonna do primitive right here with saving things out as the 16-bit float, and then I think we can do a cache from this step. We'll just call this like density fields. The next development, I don't know, it's hard to know. It seems like they just pushed some flip updates in 18. They also updated Vellum, and they did the sparse Pyro. Hopefully they're planning to add sparse support for Pyro to OpenCL. That would be amazing. But I don't know. I mean, I imagine that they would be building on and extending like the USD, the new tools for doing like big scene management and layout and stuff. Kind of trying to get more users from Katana or Clarice and stuff could be pretty interesting. Is it going to completely outperform other effects tools? I would guess so. It seems like all the other big software packages aren't doing too many effects updates. Cinema does a good amount. The Maya stuff, I saw that they had updated like Bifrost. Recently, I haven't looked into it, but it seemed like they were trying to add like procedural node-based workflows to it. So I don't know how well that works. The demos and stuff for it look pretty cool, but I don't know how well it performs. Houdini style simulation. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Autodesk, I don't think that they even care that much on like the visual effects or CG industry. So they mainly, their biggest industry is like engineering, automotive, architectural. Like so much of their money comes from those areas that they just don't update, or they don't care too much about updating the effects in 3ds Max or Maya or any of that stuff. The render frame GUI, I think that's you need to ask Redshift to add that. I don't think that that's Houdini's domain of development. Yeah, it looked like they were even doing some like knitting and hair simulation kind of stuff with Bifrost. I'm not sure even, like, it's kind of weird to be calling a feature Bifrost and then it's something that you're doing like smoke simulations and knitting in. It's a little weird to conceptualize what's going on there. It's kind of... Yeah, Naiad. So Naiad was the original guy, Robert Bridson, was node-based, yeah, and it was working pretty well, but then that's basically what Autodesk does, is they just buy stuff. They don't care too much about like integrating it that well. It's a bit weird. I don't know if they're doing it just to kind of add that feature to like their marketing release, like another bullet point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the one thing that it would be pretty cool is like the Blender improvements. Like they have the Manta flow, like EmberGen. That's another cool thing to look at. It's possible as USD gets more useful, like you're just using more standalone effects applications. That could be a pretty cool way to work. The Houdini concept is pretty nice though, because like once you realize attributes and how to manage them and stuff, you're able to like apply that knowledge everywhere. So I think I can just kill that for right now. So yeah, once you like fully just you're all in the Houdini user interface for everything, so it makes it easier. Like, could be a nightmare if you're jumping around into a bunch of different independent user interfaces and workflows and stuff. To see how long it took a frame to cache, usually I just open up the file browser and then just look at the timestamps. So I could see I'm getting, I don't know, 10 or 20 frames a minute. When it's so little, I don't care that much about it. If you really want to, you could do like performance monitor. I think if you turn on this Alfred style progress as well, it could give you some information and stuff in the shell. But usually this just seeing the last modified time stamp is enough for me. So even if you're doing Redshift, like depending if you're doing it on one machine, you could do that if you want to see the frame time. It's an old man trick. I don't think I've really used Maya for effects. I've used it. I did use Encloth sometimes when it was before we had Vellum and everything in Houdini, but now it just doesn't. There's not a ton of reasons to use Maya, I would think, for effects. It's still really good for modeling and some other things. All right. So we have them in. I just increased the density. Let's just get started with Redshift and start going with our shaders and everything. So if we want 3 different so I'm just going to do a null right here, and this will just be out smokes. So what I'm going to do is just make 3 different objects, and then I'll assign the shaders up here for each smoke. So this is the whole reason behind doing 3 different grids like this, is that we can apply different shaders to each of them. So we can assign the colors, and then the colors get mixed like at render time instead of baking things. So basically you're just able to preserve a lot more detail and contrast because you're not always like blurring and advecting things every frame. But just where things overlap and everything like that, it should look a little bit sharper. So bring these in, do object merge, and if I just get the smokes, and then under group we could just do density for this one. We could name this if we just want to keep somewhat organized. We have the sim, and then these will be our different renders, render fields or shaders. We have density 2 and 3, and I'm just gonna grab the object merge, and you just update these. What will be your approach to make the features of the smoke longer? Will you do that post-sim if needed? I don't like to really transform or manipulate them after the simulation. It depends a lot kind of what you mean by longer. I don't know if you're just talking about the scale of the noise and stuff like that. Or if you want to see like a bigger container kind of thing. There's like tools to do clustering based off of the path, and you can run other simulations like with multiple domains. It's kind of like you run into issues because as things move from one simulation to the other, if it's just the scale of the noise, then I would just adjust the swirl size on the turbulence. Like that, changing the pulse length and the amount you can get, like if you're after a more silky, smooth type of thing, just increasing the swirl size and decreasing the amplitude or the scale, you'll start to just get like a longer, thinner smoke. So yeah, I would just adjust that. Like you saw how quick this sim takes if you're doing OpenCL. Just redo the simulation with updated noise settings. I was kind of jacking them up pretty high because I wanted to see a lot of areas where they overlapped. We could try out different settings once we get the redshift stuff set up. All right. So do a material network for our shaders. One thing I might do at the end here is just rename these all just to density. Now that we have them in separate object containers and we're applying separate shaders to them, I don't want to have to worry about changing this value in the redshift shader. I want to be able to like swap shaders and do all that stuff. So just rename everything just to density now that we have it in the different containers that way. And we can make our redshift material with the volume, with the plug it in. And this is why I was renaming them, so I could just leave them at density. We'll just start with this one shader, I guess. Just maybe call it smoke 01. And just apply it to everything. When will the burnout series be coming? It will happen eventually. Everyone's been doing a lot of vehicle related stuff. So Isaac was doing the fog headlight breakdown earlier today. And just on Instagram and stuff like that. Where did it go? Just on Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of other people doing oof, that's a bad link. How did that link get so long? So yeah, Isaac was doing this stream earlier today. If you're not following him, go ahead and do that. He's breaking some stuff down. Some of it's in Redshift, some of it's in Octane or Houdini or Cinema. But it's just technically, and he has a lot of good tips for working with volumes, like making things look good. Reference credit. And then there's this other guy, like Studio Q or something. I don't. JQ. He's been doing. Is this? This guy's a machine. Yeah, he was doing some stuff. Somewhat similar as well, as everyone's kind of on the same path right now. Even this is like another Lamborghini. So I'm just taking a breather from it, doing a little reset. I'll get back to it eventually. Yeah, the Studio JQ guy, he's a beast. I don't know how he just cranking works out. Even he'll do like Illustrator logo mock-ups and posters and stuff. Is really cool. So we'll get the shaders applied. I'm just gonna set everything to this one shader to dial it in, like the thickness and stuff like that. And then we can split it out into different shaders and change the colors. Any packages adding dynamics will struggle at first. Yeah, the dynamics is just a really hard part to make it like user friendly and get good results as well. Like I feel like just from a like implementation and engineering standpoint, it's a pretty difficult. Like even in Houdini, you see with DOPS, there's like a lot of little things that tilt you pretty quickly. All right, so on the light, we just need to make sure we have volume contribution. It's a classic gotcha. And then we should be ready to go. We'll make a camera. I might, I don't know, just try something like this for right now. Just see what happens. Answering questions and focusing doesn't. I've gotten used to it slowly. It used to distract me a little bit more, but I don't know. I've always been like somewhat of a multitasker, where always just distracting myself. So it's just too thin. This is what I was talking about, dialing in the density values and stuff before we split them out into different colors. I think I need to change my GPU settings. I'm using too many of them right now. Like that's the OBS is like dropping frames and stuff like that. So just in the Houdini .env, you can tell which GPUs to use for Redshift. Forget the number, which numbers I was doing with what, but I think just setting one of them would be good. You just have to restart Houdini if you're changing that. I had been doing it that way, but I was doing some rendering overnight, so I switched my configuration so that Redshift would use all the GPUs. I just forgot to set it back today. Is it better? I think I got the wrong one. All right. Sorry about these technical issues. Need to write down the numbers of the device ID. Time for the shutdown. I feel like probably too many people are overloaded with knowledge for today. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, Lokesh. Yeah, I think I got it this time. 3 a.m. 3:30 a.m. still going. So yeah, I think I fixed it. We should, the stream shouldn't be dropping frames now. Look at that. 200 FPS. All right, so now we can go in. We just need our smoke to be thicker. One thing you can do, like I've done this before, is just reduce the maximum to kind of slam it down. I think we'll just move it. So I don't know, it kind of depends. I guess we're still a bit too thin if we look at some of these areas. kind of always hard to know where you should get these values at with Redshift. The music is just a folder I have of like royalty-free music that I just put on shuffle or whatever to work along to. Yeah, so it won't get muted in the VOD or whatever, and then it's just nice or relaxing, I guess. So this is a good starting point, I guess. Can split these out now into the different colors. So just go into here and do this. It's a 5. Yeah, so now we can play around either with this tint or the ramp. I don't think CG Circuit will close. They're pretty good. The I think that it's like a different pacing is a different mindset. Kind of the way what they're doing is just the series, like more clear as to like this time you're gonna spend, what you're gonna learn, like split out into independent videos. Mine's more of just like you could even do it in complement to those courses, where this is like office hours or something. I don't know if I would join a bigger. I've gotten offers with the CGMA or some other places as well, but it's just kind of hard to the amount of time you have to spend on it, and then the business model, it just isn't that feasible to do it for too long. Everything seems to be growing. It just takes time. There's no cheat code for, I guess if you bribe the algorithm and get your stuff boosted, need to find Jack Dorsey and give him a bribe. So yeah, this tint, you have it, and this one is just the shadow color or attenuation. So I might leave this, I don't know, maybe this is a little bit interesting, not just standard yellow, but a bit of wonkiness happening inside of there. So we had red, yellow, and white. So you just set this one over to red. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just depends on what you're interested in and stuff. But for me, I think it's just focusing on the community, and things will grow organically from that instead of getting too worried about the analytics or other stuff. So yeah, we have red. We could maybe try a different. I don't know if that's a little too over the top. I'm just doing the tint of absorption. I don't know about that. I think it kind of breaks the energy. Focus on your health. I'm trying to. It's too hot in this this area right now. But yeah, I think even doing these streams for me, it's been good, especially during the lockdown or the quarantine. Like, it's nice to have a schedule to stick to and people to hang out with, even if it's digitally. Cybering, ride or die. Yeah, so I think maybe blue. I think like these primary colors is going to be a little bit more interesting. We can always change them or do different things as well. So the blue, I might not change that absorption color too much. Maybe the light. You can even boost it here. XQC. Imagine if I was going through the Houdini parameters as fast as XQC talked. No one would be able to learn anything. So you can either adjust the intensity for like smoke, how much the light hits it, either by the main light intensity or volume contribution as well. If you have other objects like a ground or things in your scene, it's nice to be able to just boost volume brightness independently of other stuff. So I just moved it up to 2 to get it like a little bit more exposure, I guess. Maybe we'll just move the camera around. I don't know if this, we do this like top-down view. Might need to change the light source so it's not like directly overhead. And it looks like we're just mashing the voxels and stuff. Like we're too close. You can actually see the individual voxels. But I think this view should be pretty cool. Just try earlier frame or something. If we change the frame right now, I think we just need to turn on top level updates. You might need to reboot the render. So yeah, we're kind of getting like the classic issue, like the light is at the same position as the camera right now. So it's kind of like doing a headlight where we just don't really see the shadows. So I just switched my viewport to the light. Oh my God, Flash ATO. Thank you for the gift subs. Let's go. Got a full crew today. So yeah, I'm just moving the light to try to get a better shadow composition and stuff like that. Whose is this? I've tried to make a let's go emote, but it looks like they didn't improve it yet, or approve it. Where are the BTTV emotes? They don't show up in Twitch because it's like external, but if you have Chatterino, or if you just type in the thing, it would show up in my Chatterino. So just like that, like Twitch doesn't support them. That's why people use the BTTV emotes, and also so that they'll have like more slots than the Twitch ones. The Twitch ones, you can use them everywhere on Twitch. And then the BTTV ones you can also use on like Discord and other stuff. That's just the emote picker for Chatterino. So like, it's just the floating window when I click that little button that's above my stream window. So this application I'm using here it's called Chatterino. It's made by Italians. But I think it's free. You could get it with Linux and all the different things like that. And you can even, with like different tabs, you could be in different people's chats and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a little bit, I don't think it's Linux only. I've seen definitely people are using it on Windows for sure. No, people definitely use it for Windows. Cappuccino, sipping on that cappuccino, chilling in the Chatterino. Yeah, so this is starting to be a little bit better with the lighting. Maybe I'll just do it top. I don't know, I think from the side is pretty cool. We're doing a Colombian flag. This is all right. So just move our frame around and you could kind of see some areas where it's mixing color. The smoke might just overall be a little bit too dense. Vizio, you can make an advertisement for the TV companies. It's kind of hard to dial this stuff in, but maybe this kind of stuff might be a little bit better. If you want to, you could like link up these parameters just to make the tweaking and stuff like that a little bit easier. Sometimes Redshift doesn't work as well updating those expressions and stuff, so you have to be a little bit careful. But sometimes that's a better way to go. So like just typing them in, it will get the update, but if you have expressions, sometimes it doesn't do it. The retime stuff should be pretty good. I think you need to do a little bit of testing and stuff, like whether you're retiming VDBs or Houdini volumes. Like VDBs might be more difficult to retime. You might need to import the velocity field as well. So it definitely slows down your process, but you could get pretty good results from it. There's some release videos, like Side Effects updated the time blend node, maybe in 17.5 or maybe in 18, but they made a lot of improvements to it for volumes that you don't get too many artifacts or flickering or stuff like that. So I'm gonna go higher with the light contribution. So now we're just getting a little bit more mixing in the areas, and try a different frame. I've never been able to see any of the Rebel Way training, but the teasers and results and stuff look pretty impressive. I think that you just have to go to the Rebel Way website to find them. I might, oof, we got a crash. This is okay. I was gonna update the simulation settings anyway. We'll just grab this. Path. Yeah, I think that all that stuff happens through Chatterino. Like I use it, just do it to Nightbot as a failsafe. But they're asking you to add those features. Maybe I'll just do I'm like right clicking and left clicking. So you could ban or do it for a duration or stuff within Chatterino. So that's why they're asking for those permissions. I didn't know they had a free one. I'll check that out. They have a crash recovery? Is it just in very new versions? You're on a beta, Jabram? You have all the secret features in your Houdini? Alright, so we're back in our scene. What I wanted to do anyways was just adjust some of the settings. So I'll just have to save it. We want to go back into the stream directory and just do a new version. So one thing I was thinking of is like maybe our source for the smoke, maybe even making it a little bit smaller. See you later, Mac. Thanks for hanging out. Just making the emitter a little bit smaller should give us like a little bit more detailed mixing, or like less blurriness. Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to change was the turbulence settings. So yeah, we'll try a bigger swirl size. We're kind of doing the idea, I forget who it was earlier, but they were talking about like stretching the noise out like along the path. So I think if we do less scale and a bigger swirl size, your test worked, CG Rockstar. We got the message. I could just bypass that, and then if I wanted to, I could do another flip book just to see if it's up and running. So I'm thinking this might not be like with color mixing, it kind of depends on the shot you're working on and all of that stuff. For certain circumstances, I think this method could be pretty useful. For certain like smoke color, like flares, some photographers use those like colored flares in their stuff. This kind of mixing could be pretty cool for that. But then, as some other people mentioned, like if you have a ton of different colors you want to mix, it might not be as good. But I think for it'd be, I haven't tried it that much, but like mixing ink, kind of like, yeah, there's a few different ones here. So these are kind of like those colored flares that I was talking about. This is just a procedural noise. But yeah, even something like this with a few different colors. I think doing it with different shaders, either with Mantra or Redshift, you'll start to get more of those details and contrast and stuff like that. Even doing something like this, it could be interesting. I think it's even a little bit less. This is pretty interesting. I think it's even less data to store out. Like if you're just doing yeah, I've seen some photography from this festival before. It's pretty amazing. You would need more color fields for this. Yeah, there's the grains, they get the powder stuff. But yeah, what we're doing right now, if you're thinking of it from a data point of view, we're actually using less storage than if we did the CD vector field. So we have 3 floats, 3 scalar fields, or 3 densities. So instead of doing one density field with R, G, and B, it's like 4 different scalars. We're just doing 3 scalars, and we have a little bit more flexibility because we can change the colors after the simulation and stuff like that. So if you're just doing like 2 or 3 colors mixing, I think this approach can be pretty nice. I'll just press escape. The new noise is starting to be pretty interesting. This is what I meant just by like stretching it along the path a little bit more. I'm thinking what I can do now is reduce this padding a little bit. This will give us either a faster simulation, or we can go in and do a higher resolution. I might reduce the swirl size a little bit and just go a little bit closer to where we were before. This is still somewhat low resolution, so I'll just push it a little bit higher. Looks like my save in background works. Some days it works, some days it doesn't. So yeah, what I mean here is we're basically doing 3 different density fields that are each a bunch of different voxels. With the color, you're doing a CD, that's an extra field that's 3 components, R, G, and B. So doing that method can generate more data, more memory usage as well, because you're just storing more voxels, essentially. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know, it takes a while to kind of think about things from a data point of view like that. So if we wanted to, we could get the colors here from the shader that gets applied and link it up if you want to visualize things. Some people sometimes do this, but it can also be a bit of a pain, because like updating the shader requires the geometry to be sent to the renderer again, because you're changing attributes on it. If you want to get around that, you can just put the display flag there, and then the visualization, you're just visualizing the color value. That's pretty cool. So I'll just do this for the other ones. We're still waiting. Sim is going along. We should be getting a little bit more detail, and I don't know, maybe I should have moved them closer together so that they would have mixed or overlapped sooner, but we'll just let it play out. So I'll get I think this is going to work a little bit better. Basically the first version I did, because these expand so quickly, or just visually like grow, with the camera placed at the top, we're just gonna see through like to this point in the simulation. But this method, hopefully these things expand out a little bit more. We'll just be able to see more of a tunnel, and you can see more of the detail and stuff in the simulation. So hopefully it works. We'll get this color. Just do another setting here. And put the render flag there. Sometimes what I do, if I'm linking a lot of parameters and stuff, I have this other network view. If you change the numbers at the top, like usually for you this would just be the no link, it would be like a thumb pin. So if you set these to separate numbers, then you can just use them independently. So like this, sometimes assigning shaders, you can edit the shader and edit other parameters at the same time and stuff. So like with this last one, I can just make a color and grab this, paste it. You can also see how well it works. You should be able to drag. My OBS might be messing it up, but it should expand like a little drop-down menu, and then you could do the way that you want to. You could just like copy the values, or I'm gonna do again another relative channel reference. So that's nice to be able to drag and drop references and stuff as well. And then we just need to move the flags around and we should be somewhat back in action. So now we can just visualize the actual shader values a little bit better. Let's see. So yeah, we might want to go a little bit thicker with the smoke if it's not like stacking up as much. So I'll leave it going for a little bit. Maybe we want to move the camera rotation just to center it. Have get these precise numbers typed in. So now we're right in the middle. You could even do like a dolly or something. Could be cool. So yeah, I think we are gonna want to make this stuff. It's kind of hard to know, like, to link these numbers here to know if you're visualizing the density, because Redshift uses different units or like different methods. With Mantra you can get stuff to match pretty easily, but I guess Redshift will just have to wait and see. I'm not rendering right now because I'm doing the simulation on the graphics card. So I'm just waiting until we have a few more frames cached out before I cancel it. Or basically, if you try to do both of them at once, it could fill up your graphics card memory and ruin your simulation. You can always go into this file picker. Just to see where the current frame is up to simulating. That's another little trick. Besides just looking at these timestamps to see when it finished, if you just sort by last modified and you're like overwriting a cache, you just see what the most recently modified file was to see the current progress. So we're at frame 102. So I think we're getting close. I'm just gonna get some water and then I'll probably be able to switch over to rendering in 1 more minute. All right, let's you just look at the render scheduler. This is where you could manage those like save to disk and backgrounds. For actual, it is a window. Yeah, it's a window to the outside. That's why the sunlight is so directional from that. Standing up the whole time. Yes, I just have a standing desk. It's like actually a dining room table, so it doesn't adjust to up or down. You do it, you just get in the routine of doing it enough and you'll be able to do it. You won't get tired. Yeah, the majority of this Houdini work, like for long sessions and stuff, I prefer to do it standing up. I think the biggest reason is just because I'm pretty tall, like 6'5" or 6'4". It's just hard to set up a sitting workstation and have all the monitors at the right height. Like you need a lot of extra weird stuff. And just streaming with a softbox light. All right, so we can kill this sim. We got up to 138. So it's just taking some time to update because I'm turned off that like resolution limit. So the viewport will take a bit longer to draw like really high resolution volumes. You thought it was a distortion? Yeah, I might need to bend it down a little bit or something. I did end up at the bottom of my screen, my window somehow. Yeah, so it should be ready to render. See what we get. Play NBA. I played a little bit in high school, but I was never that good. All right, so some of these colors, they're a little bit maybe too saturated, or there's some odd stuff going on. Let's just play around with these numbers and see what we can do. So it's possible we just didn't have enough absorption or enough shadows before. It's hard to know. Might be this. I don't know if this color is really messing it up. I'll just leave that where it is. I was always a freelance, even at Apple. It was just contract. Like they do their contracts based off of quarters, or like 3 month, a quarter of a year. It's fun. Sometimes you need a break. Like the way that Apple works, they just spend so much time on a 10-second animation or a 10-second part of their presentation. So you just get so like tired of, you're just trying to dial in and try out different settings for such a small thing, or for a really long period of time. Let's see what we can do with this red. I think adding some more shadows starts to make it, just you see some more shape in it and everything. So I think with the blue, we need to do that as well. Like too much like a constant shader, I guess, if you don't have enough shadowing. It's just like too much additive see-through stuff happening. But yeah, this is pretty interesting. Deep down in the in the bottom. Maybe we'll just move the camera. I feel like this camera doesn't update with Redshift unless you move it around in in the viewport. Somehow that blue, I think the other smokes I need to do that same change. There was like the exploding bubble or whatever. Like this spray or whitewater stuff or whatever. So I think if you have that product or the model, like if you put your finger down, it will animate or move for a little bit. So this blue smoke just needs more density, I think. Kind of weird how the top of that is like see-through. But I think this is better. So let's go back to our camera. Push it in. Whoa. Going all the way in. Yeah, so if you go to the resume or whatever on the website, it would show it, but I did do, so like TV extends, like that's advertising, and Apple has their own advertising department, or they also outsource a lot of their advertising work to other studios. So it's, if you're in advertising, it kind of makes sense to be there for some time. So this is starting to be some cool frames. I don't know if even getting further in, like once you figure out a camera, then you can start to optimize your domain even more and push the detail even higher if you want to. Some of these frames here are really, really cool. The golden boy of San Francisco. It was interesting. It's like came up here to start at DreamWorks because they had their PDI studio, and then they closed it down like because of redundancies, or it was right before Comcast bought them and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of got stranded up here, but it worked out, and I found a lot of other places to work at. So yeah, I might go in now and just optimize this domain and stuff a little bit. So if we go back to the smoke sim container, just pop out of our camera and just rehome the scene. Everything's getting a little messy. It's displaying something. It'll take a minute. All right. So put everything back. Oh man. Just doing these very slowly. 1, 2, 3, boom. So if we look here, you can see we don't really need the top portion of the simulation. I could even move the display flag up here to make it a little bit more clear. So if I want to, I don't know about those attributes, CG Rockstar. Like, I need to take a look at that file, but it just doesn't make sense. The images or the flipbooks you were showing, it didn't look like you even had that many particles. I think something else is definitely amiss or happening, because it's like just having 5 extra attributes shouldn't add like tens of gigabytes to your cache. Yeah, I don't know. There's other like issues that might be at play. I'll take a look at it. So basically, if you look here, the size of this box for Y is 0.875 roughly. So we go from 1.2, we eliminate a lot of like empty space if we're gonna go from this camera view. It's going to be something called gas. I don't know. I've never seen gas being stored as attributes. So now I can get things to even higher resolution. And I don't know, I might try adding one more octave or band of the turbulence. And maybe just give that another try. So yeah, sometimes that little thing, like the message it gives you while it's saving stuff, sometimes it doesn't accurately report what it's working on. Like sometimes it's just saying there's like issues with it. So sometimes the information that it gives you is like out of date, or it's just completely wrong. But even if you're doing a pop simulation, I'm opening a new Houdini while we save out this sim. So I just do a DOP network and pop solver. Can just allow editing of contents. So even within the pop solver, like for whatever reason, they still call this like integrate positions. This is basically a fancy way of just saying like add the velocity to the position. This is still called a gas integrator because it's a micro solver. So it's a bit misleading. You can have things called gas even if they are only operating on points or particles. So that might be like one of the things, but I don't, for such any like particle simulation, it shouldn't be that slow or that big of a cache. Are those splash screens Linux only? This is just custom. If you you can just link it to your own file. So in that same houdini.env that I was setting the GPU devices, I was also just setting the splash file. You just set this environment variable to whatever PNG or JPEG or whatever. You can have whatever splash screen you want. This is I just get bored of looking at the same one, so I'll change it like from month to month. Let's see where our simulation is. 8%. Frame 20. So just let this one run for a little bit. It's a different species. Let this run for a little bit and see. Yeah, it's just like a joke to keep yourself entertained. But yeah, we'll see. I might do this D texture and then turn the limit resolution back on. So if you're just trying to do lighting or work more quickly, sometimes it makes sense to turn that feature off. You could just scrub your timeline a little bit more quickly. If you're doing a flipbook, it makes sense to take the time to switch that around and limit the resolution. But sometimes if you just want very quick results, you just turn it on. So it looks like we're getting a little bit better results with the turbulence. I just added that extra band or the extra octave. The turbulence is just up to 4. So that will just give you some more smaller details and stuff like that. But we'll try to let this get to see how slow this is going. We're doing like 10 frames a minute up to frame 34. But yeah, my plan is just to let this simulate, get another higher resolution. Hopefully the increased resolution will fix some of these like voxel artifacts. And just render it, see what it looks like, and that will probably be it for today. I don't know if Redshift has specific settings for like voxel filtering. I don't have the uptime. I don't have that command set up with the bots yet. But yeah, I don't know with Redshift, like so what is there, this, I don't know if this works only when I do it or when everyone does it, but you might have to do like exclamation point commands, and then you can see the list of options you have. Or maybe you could go to that link and it will tell you. I'm not sure, because I've only done it when I've logged in myself. But yeah, so with this voxel stuff, like Redshift, I think it doesn't just have as many options. With the Houdini volume rendering, like they have this volume filter width and volume filter. So if you want to get rid of those box artifacts, you can switch to Gaussian and go with a bigger filter width, and then that will start to smooth everything. It's like blurring everything a bit, but it can help fix those artifacts. I guess Redshift just doesn't have as many features for volume rendering. Yeah, the rain simulation, it shouldn't be taking more than an hour. Definitely need to take a look at it. My volume simulation is quicker than your rain, just for 10, 20 particles. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So let's see where we're at. 57. Yeah, so if we just switch between the two of them, like the older cache and the newer cache, you should see it. Basically that extra octave, or the extra turbulence, just adds like a little level of detail, smaller areas kind of. Where did it? Are you memeing? Darking5177? I'm not too knowledgeable with game development stuff, but just in general, in terms of like one-on-one help and stuff like that, I unfortunately just don't really have the time to do that right now. So between just streaming, working, and having free time, I'm already stretched pretty thin with everything. And I'm not super knowledgeable about making a game. I've done some work on it with game engines and stuff, but I was doing specific tasks, and there were a lot of other people working on portions of it. So I'm not the best resource for making games. It was pretty impressive though to be 13 and tackling a game. I tried to, when I was younger, I tried to look into game engine programming and stuff like that, and didn't work out that well. It was like a lot harder to get into that stuff because the technology wasn't that far along. But like, I think I went to like a bookstore and just bought like Game Developer's Guide, and it had like all this math and C++ programming and stuff, and it just, I tried to like read it. I just didn't even know what I was getting into. It was a mess. Do you think it is possible to work somewhat normally in Houdini with a Mac Pro 2.8 quad i7? 16 gigs of RAM and 2 gigabytes memory? I don't know about what you mean with somewhat normally. Like, I have an older MacBook Pro that I'll test things out with that I think the specs on it sound familiar to the ones that you have. It's okay for like trying out ideas and testing files and stuff like that. But for doing actual client or production work or stuff that you actually want to like render out and show people, it's not. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing modeling, or I even do OpenCL with the ATI graphics card or whatever, and you can do like low resolution smoke sims and try out forces. But I never really push ideas past just like trial setups and seeing how things work. So it depends. Like, I wouldn't recommend buying a Mac unless you really need like the other features like video editing or other things that it does pretty well. But you learn patience. You learn patience, and you learn to optimize things because you're just working with like such little resources. But yeah. So we'll take a look. Frame 89. So yeah, that was the smaller turbulent stuff I was talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know now because they're making new features and stuff with Houdini and everything like that. Like, I have a somewhat similar Mac Pro, I'm pretty sure, but it's definitely kind of on its last legs. Like, I wouldn't, if you have it, I'd say go ahead and use it, install Houdini. You'll be able to try out stuff, but I wouldn't recommend like going out and purchasing. .3D rates and coding. You're collecting everyone's rates and their coding abilities. All right, so we'll just let this go a little bit longer, maybe 20 more frames. Should just be a couple minutes looking at this timing. I just want to see this stuff overlapping or mixing a little bit more. I think that's what was working here pretty successfully. This was one game engine thing I was looking at a while back. It's like retro style or something. I don't know if it's still updated. This is like 6 or 7 years ago I looked into it, but I think this was like a pretty popular iPhone game. I think because of like Flash, everything got a bit outdated or antiquated or whatever, but could be cool just to make simple, minimal kind of style games. I have taken some later, like gaming classes and stuff, and like usually what they'll have you do at the start is just try to recreate like what is that? The one with the X's and the O's? What is that game called? They'll just have you recreate simple games like Tetris, or Tetris is a pretty, I don't think it's bingo, it's you try to get the 3 X's in a row. Tic-tac-toe. I kept thinking of TikTok, but it corrupted my brain. I was like, this isn't, it's destroyed me. Yeah, tic-tac-toe, like if you just try to make start with a very simple game. I mean, it depends a lot, like what you're trying to do, but if you're trying to learn the fundamentals of like game programming, just making even like a coin flipping game, that's a really easy one to get started with. Snake, yeah, just start, even with Houdini, I'll use that approach, is like break your task down into something, into simpler tasks that you just have more like road marks or I don't know, a cheat, more checkpoints that just breaks it up into smaller tasks. It's easy to get lost and just be like, I want to learn game programming. You don't even know where to start and you're just despairing all the time. So we have 121. I think we're close to another frame to render. So the colors look different right now because I'm visualizing stuff in a different... Oh, it is called bingo in your country? Yeah, bingo, for at least in America, is like the game that old people play at retirement homes, and it's more like Battleship, where it's like B9 is like referring to a grid cell or a grid coordinate, and you try to... sometimes they use it with like trivia questions, like you play bingo with like a TV show and try to see if a certain event or line of dialogue happens, and that's a bingo square. But yeah, I think we're good with our simulation. We're up to frame 127. Well, let's just give this a try. So I was saying this frame, the colors are different because I'm still visualizing it here with the outdated colors. If I did go up to like object level, the visualizations and stuff should match. They do. It's just the density, like the thickness is a bit harder to get it to match. I did see recently Unity, they have their university, or they have like their own internal training program, and I saw that they made it all free like 3 or 4 months ago or something like that. So I'm just trying to more intensity with the light. Maybe we'll try an earlier frame before they're all overlapping too much. Pretty cool. Maybe we'll go to somewhere right around 100. This is starting to be a little more interesting. Yeah, so we can always, the other nice thing about this approach is that you can adjust colors even after the simulation. So we could go back to white. Got our pinkish white because of this absorption color. This is pretty interesting. It's like a soap concoction. Yeah, I could try another light. That could be cool as well. I think moving the lights up and down, maybe to get more rim lighting, could be nice. I'm just gonna try some other less saturated color ideas or something right now. Maybe if I just stick with white and move the absorption channel around, could be interesting. So we'll do this one. Oof. This is that classic Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Getting into that Xbox green territory. We need some more darkness. I guess this is a little bit interesting. Yeah, so we'll try the lighting ideas. Gonna move things around a little bit. Running out of space to put things. Alright. So we'll just have that right there. And this light, I was kind of thinking is, sometimes if you just go to wireframe bounding box, this is a somewhat easy way to like move lights around. You don't have to, the viewport is just a little faster. So I might go closer with this light. Gonna have to compensate. I want that because I think you move lights closer and you get a little bit more shape. Like it's less like a distance or sunlight. It's more like a photography studio. It will actually, the intensity, like roll off and stuff, will be more noticeable. And then with the height of it, just drop it down. Trying to get more rim lighting. Maybe we're just too hot. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll try this and just make a copy of it. Flip things around. So I'm just gonna look through. This isn't the most mathematical way to to position these lights. Let's take a look. You could always go like smaller. Sometimes that you get more detail in the shadows if you just make your lights smaller. Got our exposure a bit too. Let's go down on the volume contribution. This green one is looking pretty nice. I don't know about the brown is a little bit odd right now. Let's take a look at the brown one. Whoops. I think it was 2. Maybe getting a little more saturation. Got a cotton candy factory going on over here. I think this blue, green, and pink is a pretty nice, very gentle let's just really slam this, see what we get. I guess this is more like an ink. It really absorbs a lot of the light. Let's try going the other way. Yeah, so I think maybe around 100 or something, it was feeling pretty good. I think the other ones too, I had done this remapping of the density to make it just appear a bit thicker, like more fluffy. Use those colors. I do use that. That's a thing that used to be cooler or whatever. I feel like with these volumes, it's a bit hard to like sample like this getting them to match and stuff like that. Get a nice color scheme. Yeah, they have some really good, hop on all the trends and stuff like that. I think this one's feeling pretty good though. It's a nice, delicious treat. It's ice cream. Just making sure the other stuff is set how I expected it. So I guess I was going to 0.1 with the other ones. And then I have this scatter coefficient linked. It looks like the Redshift is able to pull in. I was worried that it didn't read these expressions. It looks like it's working. I'm gonna go forward. Vegan nuts. Thanks for hanging out for so long. You've had a long day at the stream TV today. Did the back-to-back Isaacs and this one here. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting one. It's kind of like reminds me a little bit of like Skittles, like these two flavors maybe. Support the Lords. But yeah, I think this, I don't know, I kind of like this variation. I might just play around with the post effects. See what happens. It's kind of nice to be able to do like the tone mapping stuff or whatever. It's very Pixar-ish. It's a fantasy. I don't know. It's a, yeah. It's like a. It could be up or it is a very Pixar color palette. Oof. You were just talking about the site in general? Is it all just natural colors? This is interesting how they have it organized. So you're just saying with the site, everything is based off of photos or like nature, kind of? Need to get a render farm membership. Everything's too slow on my end right now with the I don't have enough GPUs. So yeah, we're still getting a little of those box artifacts with Redshift. But overall it's pretty interesting. Sometimes adding the we go down the contribution on these. Sometimes adding the dome can be a bit interesting. Just have to make sure to do the contribution on it as well. But like typically with you would never do like HDRI to light a volume with Mantra just because it's so slow. But Redshift seems... This area seems like it's taking some time for it to resolve nicely, but overall Redshift you can get... Yeah, I think... I'm not sure exactly what you mean by support the post effects in EXR format, but they have different options. Like if I do... Like if you load a snapshot, then you can use this as like an image editor, kind of like instead of having to render the image to this frame buffer, you can pull in something that Redshift had saved. I don't do it too often, but it can be kind of useful for that. Yeah, sometimes you need some. You can split out the effects to an extra channel as well. Yeah. So I think on the Redshift node, under main maybe, it might be just output. They might have moved it around. It might be one of these. There's a bunch of different features and stuff for managing it in these areas though. Under AOV, you just add it as an additional AOV. Yeah, there's a different setting. They might have moved it around, but you just have to make sure that this applied to file output is turned on, I believe. And it should bake it into the image. And then as CG Rockstar was saying, if you just add, it might be taking a second to reload things, you can store it as an additional AOV. So you have where did it go? It's better geared. Yeah, it depends like how quickly you're doing and what projects you're working on. So this is more for concepting or working quickly. If you were working on a bigger project with a compositor and stuff, you wouldn't want to bake this stuff in. But yeah, I think that it's... I'm not sure. I would look at the documentation for it or something. Get rid of this. So I'll just try out a different HDRI for the lighting. So you're just managing on the Redshift camera. They have this post effects, like it's the same parameters over here, but it might depend if you're switching cameras or stuff like that. Sometimes that will throw you off because it doesn't get applied like the way that you think it will. But yeah, we'll just go back to the dome map. We'll do classic directory. So I've just gathered these on my new website. There's the resources. I don't know if this, did I add it? Aha, there it is. So you go there, you get extra, there's 8 links for HDRI maps and stuff like that. Might try maybe the, I don't know, trying an outdoor one, might be too many colors and stuff like that. Yeah, of course, Kieran. Thank you for stopping by. I might do the donut primary. Let's take a look. Jib Wood, how's it going? We're getting close to wrapping up here. We're doing this color mixing stuff. I'm just playing around with some different lighting ideas and stuff. Just wrapping it up. Let's see how many frames we saved out. We'll go all the way to the last frame. I think this is a pretty interesting composition, very delicious. We're doing the chocolate yesterday with the cotton candy. It's all a bunch of sugar. Sugary renders only. Just still trying to load the thing. Maybe this one frame here is a bit maybe try going to like frame 126. It looks like it picked it up here. So yeah, there's just a bit more mixing and stuff happening there. I don't think that the GI stuff will change it, but I'll do a quick test just to see if anything happens. Yeah, I don't think that it changes the volume response. You might be able to get bleeding of the volume onto hard surfaces, like if you have a grid or studio backdrop or something like that with it though. But yeah, this is probably gonna leave it here for today. This is just another approach, technique for mixing. Not necessarily the best one to always use, but it's a good one to know about if you're trying to get certain types of effects or stuff like that. Yes, I have to go as well, Mr. Flash ATO. So we'll be back tomorrow. Hope everyone has a good Saturday night, evening, whatever time zone you're in. I'll be enjoying all the sugars. All right, take it easy.